Hello. So, as you may have guessed, today's video is going to be a bit dinosaur themed. Between my shirt with a whole bunch of different herbivores on it, and the fact that I have the book for Dinosaur back here, and I have Littlefoot, who, yes, I know Littlefoot is not Disney, but he's like one of the only dinosaur stuffed animals I have. I also have the Pokemon, and I also have a little Triceratops. I'm aware that there's not a Triceratops in this actual movie, I don't think. Or I don't think that there is. I don't think the Ceratops as a species were quite around at this point in time. But tiny Triceratops. In the time that this movie takes place in. This video is going to be about Dinosaur, which came out in 2000. A slight bit up front about the movie. It is a computer animated movie, but they use a large amount of the film's backgrounds are from like actual film locations, like places in Venezuela and Australia and to Hawaii and like all these other places around the world that they went to film all these different types of jungles and deserts and cliffs and oceans and all this type of stuff, and then they interlaid the computer animated characters over the top of it, along with, of course, adding in effects. But they started with actual like real backgrounds for the most part. There's a few backgrounds that they probably had to make, but for the most part, the backgrounds are actually like places you could go. So it's computer animated characters in a fairly live action world. Of course, sometimes they have to blend different areas together, like, oh, these mountains plus like this river or that type of stuff. Um, the movie itself takes place during the Cretaceous period, which is 110 million to 140 million years ago. Um, yeah, dinosaurs are not my expertise, but I still like them in regards to this. But yes, we have that's the time frame that this is, and I think they did fairly good at sticking to dinosaurs that were actually around during this time frame. Um, Unlike a few other things, like I don't remember if like Land Before Time, for example, I don't remember if like all of those different dinosaurs that they use in the movies, particularly as like the kid group, I don't know if those ones all actually existed at the same time. Same thing with like the other like dinosaur projects that Disney has done in way back for Fantasia, the original Fantasia. They have the Rite of Spring sequence that involves the Tyrannosaurus Rex versus I think it's the Spinosaurus that it fights during the Rite of Spring sequence way back then. This one is a little bit more historically accurate, I would say. But that's where that goes. So the premise of the movie, or the beginning of the movie, is we have a female iguanodon, which is most of the dinosaurs in this are herbivores. We do, of course, for purposes of conflict, we do deal with carnivores a few times in this movie. But for at the beginning, we're introduced to a large amount of herbivores. It seems to be nesting season. We're introduced to a female iguanodon who is currently taking care of all the eggs in her nest. And then there is a attack. There is a Carnotaurus, which is just kind of I don't know if it was like a precursor to the Tyrannosaurus Rex. I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember my exact timelines for like Tyrannosaurus Rex versus this thing versus this versus whatever else was in like the family tree for this thing. But we have there's an attack by a giant Carnotaurus, which is a giant kind of T-Rex type creature that is there to it's there to hunt down the people, and the Carnotaur attacks, and all these different animals scatter and are running and everything, and the mama iguanodon is trying to cover her eggs, and unfortunately the nest gets stomped on, and all but one egg is crushed. And so all the other dinosaurs are, of course, fleeing, being chased by the Carnotaur, and one of the one of the dinosaurs is caught, and the Carnotaur starts eating it. And then we get this weird little, it's called an oviraptor, which is just, I don't know, it's a weird little dinosaur that comes along, and it takes the one surviving egg, and it like runs off into the forest. And it's like tries to start eating the egg. It doesn't quite work. And then this other oviraptor comes over, and the two of them kind of fight over the egg, and the egg drops, and it kind of floats down a river, and like the two look at each other, and then they go, it's like, you made me drop my lunch. And then the egg just starts floating down. It's kind of eaten at one point and then spit back up, and just keeps floating down. And there's like two. I don't remember exactly what they are. I don't remember. I don't think they're. I don't think they're Spinosaurs. No, I don't think they're Spinosaurs. There's like something else that are like two ones that look like they're arguing. And like the egg just kind of floats down this river between them. They're like, ah! Like just arguing with each other. Like the egg floats down this river past all these other dinosaurs, like narrowly avoiding getting stomped on multiple times. And then a pteranodon comes down and scoops up the egg and starts flying off, and flies and flies and flies. Flies until it reaches its nest, and then before it can give the egg to its babies to be eaten, I'm assuming, it's attacked by some birds, and then it drops the egg over this island, and it lands on what is Lemur Island. And we are introduced to the primates in this movie. We are introduced to a bunch of different lemurs. There is Pleo, who is the main female lemur in this movie. And there's Yar, who is her father. She has a little brother, Zinni, but he doesn't really come into play until after we get a small time skip, but he's there. And the egg just lands on this branch in the middle of their forest. And like they're all like, okay, what is that? And Pleo just kind of works her way over to the egg, and she's like looking it over, and it starts to hatch. And she helps it hatch, and inside is a little baby iguanodon, which, considering this was an egg in an iguanodon nest, I would have been surprised if it was anything else that popped out of the dang egg. But it's a little baby iguanodon, and she like picks it up, and she holding it like a baby, and she like looks at her Yar is her father, and she's looking at her father, and he's like, and he looks at the baby dinosaur, and he's like, it's a cold-blooded thing from across the sea. Drop it out of the tree and kill it now, or else it'll eat all of us. And she's like, but it's a baby. And he's like, it will kill us and destroy us and everything when it gets bigger. And she's like, okay. Sorry, little one. Okay, Dad, here you go. You drop it out of the tree and you get rid of it. And this lemur, oh God, Pleo has so much sass. I love her. She just like turns from her father. It's like, here you go. You can throw this off the tree then if you don't want it around, because I ain't gonna do it. She just like walks, and she's like, just walks off. And Yar is like, fine, I'll throw it off the tree. And he's like, got it, and he's like holding it, and he's looking at it, and the baby is of course being cute because it's a newborn, it's a baby, and he just like, he's like about to drop it, and then he just like, he can't do it. He's like, fine, I can't do it. He's like, he can't kill an innocent baby. And then it pees. The little baby pees, and then he gives it back to Pleo, and Pleo's gonna raise it, and she ends up naming the baby Aladar. And then several years later, Aladar is all grown up, and he's running around in the forest, and the button on this joke is we have that all the lemurs thought that Aladar. The lemurs were worried that Aladar was going to grow up into basically like a Carnotaur or a T-Rex or something that was going to be able to eat them. By technicality, Aladar is quite able to eat them, considering that his size compared to theirs is, they're kind of, I think according to what I had seen, iguanodons full grown are I want to say 10. I don't think it was 10 meters tall, but it was they're very large dinosaurs, of course. But we cut to several years later, and Aladar is chasing all these young lemurs around in the forest, and he catches one of them in his mouth, and he just slurps up the tail, pretends to slurp up the tail like it's spaghetti. Dinosaurs don't have spaghetti, but you know, whatever, it's funny. And they're chasing these lemurs, and he's like, he like corners these other lemurs, these other young lemurs, and then the one that was in his mouth starts going, let me out, and like forces his way out of the mouth, and he's just like, Aladar's like, hairball. And it's just, you know, he's playing with them, you know, and they start jumping all over him and like pretending to attack him and everything. And the little one that he ate is Suri, who is actually his younger adopted sister because she's Pleo's daughter. And she, Pleo shows up, and it's, all the kids are fine, and they're just all talking, and her and Aladar talk, and Pleo's basically been Aladar's mom for the past several years or whatever. She's the one that basically raised him. He knows he is not a lemur, quite obviously, although that would have been a very interesting conversation of how can I explain to a giant lizard that it's not a lemur? You're a lot bigger than us, and you don't have fur. Him, yeah, I know. I kind of noticed that when I couldn't climb trees very well. I also don't have a type of tail that you guys do. Yeah, but I wanted to be a lemur. um, and actually, I think when I was a kid, if I remember correctly, I think the Prince of Egypt from DreamWorks may have come out. I don't know if it came out like exactly around the same time as when Dinosaur came out, or if it came out like a little bit earlier or a little bit after. But I remember because in the Prince of Egypt movie from DreamWorks, there's like the sequence where like the egg is like, it's not an egg, it's a basket. Of course, it has baby Moses, or has baby Moses in it. It's like floating down this river, and it gets in and out of all these different dangerous situations, and somehow survives, and then ends up getting raised by this other family. And in this case, I always look at it as, so does that mean that Aladar is supposed to be Moses? Admittedly, he does end up saving his family from a horrible fate and saving a bunch of others from a horrible fate, but I'm like, so was it complete coincidence that he ended up surviving and getting squished by the Carnotaur way back in the beginning of the movie, or was it destiny? Like, whatever, like, prehistoric as in, like, dinosaur version of God, I guess. I don't know if dinosaurs have gods. I don't know. That's a very interesting concept. Did dinosaurs have gods? I don't know, and this is a very weird topic to be talking about. What were the theological beliefs of dinosaurs? Did they find other dinosaur bones and been like, what the was this thing? This thing was huge. What was this? I don't know. Okay, moving on. But I just always thought that was a weird comparison. Probably I saw that as a kid, and I'm like, egg, river, survives. Basket, river, survives. Aladar Moses. That was just always one of those things that always baffled me as a kid. I'm assuming they're just, it's I mean, like the biblical stories, it's like there's only so many stories in the world that you can tell, and the Bible has a lot of them in it, but still. Eldar was raised by Pleo, and Suri is his adopted sister. Yar is his, kind of adopted grandfather. And then it's mating season for the lemurs, and they're all getting ready to, all the females are getting ready. Pleo gives like a pep talk to the females, and her brother Zinni, who is kind of Aladar's kind of adopted uncle, I guess, he's a little bit younger than Pleo, and he has yet to find a mate, even after several years of probably being part of the mating season. He has yet to find a mate, and it's, Yar gives like a pep talk to all the male lemurs, and then, Aladar kind of helps in this. He's kind of like the ride for the male lemurs to get to this giant tree where they do like the mating sequence type thing, where they have, the lemurs, the females and the males, courtship type thing, whatever that they do. And they all pair off except for, Suri is too young for this, of course, and then Zinni is the one that doesn't find anyone. And, all the lemurs are up in the tree, and Yar and Pleo are talking, and they're like, Pleo's like, well, we still have two bachelor. Or Yara's like, well, we still have one bachelor, referring to Zinni. And Cleo's like, no, we still have two, referring to Zinni and Aladar. And at one point, there's a joke in the movie where she's like, where Cleo is talking to Aladar, and she's like, too bad there's no one on the island that looks like you. Well, looks like you except prettier. Um, I love the back and forth that they have with this. All the voice actors in this movie, I do think, do a great job because there's lots of great jokes that happen between the different characters, and I just find them so funny. And Cleo has so much sass, but also wisdom, and I love it. And and like, so all the lemurs are up in the tree, and it's at night. It was like at sunset. It was like the courtship thing, and all of them are all looking off at the sunset and everything. And then there seems to be like a giant, there's like something streaks across the sky, and then it looks like there's something falling into the water, and it looks like a giant fireball is falling into the water. And it crashes into the water, and it's from the dinosaurs' point of view, they don't know what this is. It's like like there's all this smoke and ash and debris heading toward the island. There's other debris raining down from the sky, causing destruction, and churning up the ocean and causing destruction on the island. And it's a meteor, of course, fell. This is not the meteor that like wiped out the dinosaurs. I think it was way too small. But it's a meteor. There's always been meteors that hit Earth and everything. That's not surprising, but this one was just a large one that hit. And like Aladar is grabbing. He grabs Yar and Zinni and Suri and Cleo, and like they all get on his back. And I think they tried to rescue some of the other lemurs, but they were they're the ones that like were able to get off the island fast enough. And they get into the water, and they're just like swimming as fast as they can toward the kind of the opposite direction, of course, of where this giant smoke cloud is coming from. And like there's heat, and you can tell that it's very, very hot. And like it's there's smoke, so they're inhaling smoke, and they're Aladar is swimming as fast as he can, which I don't actually know if iguanodons could swim. I mean, they're bipedal dinosaurs to a degree, but they can also quadrupeds at times. They do kind of have, well, they don't have hands, but they have like 3 fingers, and one of them kind of acts a little bit like a pinky, and then they have like kind of a spiked claw so I would assume maybe they could swim to a degree. And like, so Aladar's swimming as fast as he can to get away from the destruction, and they end up getting onto land that's far enough away from the destruction. There was still obviously this was obviously still affected, but it's kind of calmed down in this area for where they were able to get to, and they're the only ones that survived from Lemur Island. Or at the very least, as far as they're aware, they're the only ones that survived. There's always the possibility that there were some little pockets that were able to get to safety and that weren't completely burned out, but for all intents and purposes, as far as we're aware, they're the only ones that survived. And then they're just like, I guess we gotta keep moving and find somewhere else, because you gotta find food and water. And they start traveling, and at one point during their travels, they end up in this very desert type area, and that's very that's not a very good place to be. And they end up kind of getting they get pursued and then attacked by a pack of velociraptors. And Aladar's kind of trying to fight them off a little bit, but he's mostly just trying to run away because like the lemurs can't really help fight the velociraptors because they're too small to help to fight the velociraptors. And Aladar ends up running into this giant herd of dinosaurs, all kinds of different dinosaurs. There's this is the first time that Aladar's seen other there's a bunch of iguanodons that are leading the group. The main one is called Crone is the main one, and he's kind of the leader of this group. And then he has his lieutenant, who is Bruton. And this is kind of the first time that Aladar has seen other iguanodons. I mean, like, he's probably looked in water that's been still and seen kind of what he looks like, so he kind of knows what his other types of dinosaurs looks like, but he doesn't know what other dinosaurs look like for the most part. This is the first time he's seeing any of them because there weren't other dinosaurs on the island that he was on. Or if for some reason there were like the very, very tiny ones that weren't really a threat to the lemurs, I would assume. But he's, all these different types of dinosaurs that are in this group. And he's just like, wow. And there's a female one whose name is Nira. We'll learn a little bit about her later, but she's Crone's younger sister. Crone is kind of I'd say a jerk. Crone's basis, I think, were actually like Scar from The Lion King. Was a little bit of his basis in regards to, push, 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 only the strong deserve to survive type of a thing, and the weak can be left as like to slow down the enemies, slow down the predators, which, by a technicality, in certain cases is not a bad idea, but, for a Disney movie doesn't really work as a very good motivator. But Aladar ends up at the end of this group. There's this very elderly Brachiosaurus whose name is Baleen, and then there is a Styracosaurus. I probably mispronounced that. Looks a little bit like a Triceratop, but only kind of has like one horn here, but still has like the bony plates on its head. And it's called Ema. And then she has kind of like a little dog-like pet dinosaur that is an Ankylosaurus, whose name is Earl. And it basically acts like a dog. He's kind of cute. He has like this weird like stalactite bone thing that he carries around with him. And they meet Aladar, Ema and Baleen meet Aladar, and Earl kind of likes him instantly, and Baleen and Ema's like, well, that's odd. He doesn't usually, like new people that quickly. And then, Baleen and Ema think that, the lemurs on Aladar's back are like some type of a infection or moss or something like that. And he explains, no, they're my family. And they're like, oh, okay, whatever. And he ends up learning that this group of dinosaurs is on their way to a nesting grounds. Because, there was a large amount of destruction that was caused by the fireball, and now they need to get to a nesting ground because hopefully the nesting ground is intact and there's, food there and water and, a safer place to be, and they can, raise their young there, work on getting the next generation going. And Aladar thinks that sounds at least like a better place for them to be, at least in this group, is a better place to be than, waiting on the velociraptors to come and find them. And they join the group, and they end up, they join the group, and he becomes friends with like Baleen and Ema, and he goes and he finds out that, the pace that they're setting, that, Bruton is setting is a little rough for us, or that Crone is setting is a little rough for us because we're just kind of old and, we can't move as quickly as the others. And Aladar goes and he tries to talk to Crone and say, well, how about you slow down the pace just a tiny bit so that way these guys can keep up better. It's a good idea to keep them, moving with the herd and everything. Wouldn't that be, like a good thing to do? Be a nice thing to do. And Nira seems a little befuddled by this. But Crone is not the happiest with this suggestion. He's like, let the weak set the pace. How about you just leave the thinking to me? Crone doesn't like Aladar right off the bat. Bruton doesn't really like Aladar right off the bat. Nira seems a little iffy. And what ends up happening is, they spend the night at the, it's nighttime, it's time to rest, and they all rest. And, Aladar probably spent some time talking to, Ema and Baleen, and, getting to know them a little bit. And the lemurs end up talking a bit to like Ema and Baleen, and they probably end up kind of telling their story and everything. And what happens is, they travel and travel, and then they end up reaching this place where it's supposed to be a giant lake bed. After they travel through this desert area, there's supposed to be this giant lake that they can, stop and refresh at, and then keep moving. And And they get to the lake area and it's dry. No water, nothing. And, Bruton or Crone is ready to just keep moving the herd, move to the next one, move to keep going, even though they need water. And Nira doesn't really like this. Unfortunately, at one point, Zinni tried to be a little bit of a matchmaker, and that didn't work very well because he ended up making it look like Aladar was being a little bit of a jerk, and Yura didn't like that. Yura also seems to be in charge of these two younger Allosauruses. Ha, wrong dinosaur entirely. Iguanodons. These two little iguanodons. And at one point, she calls when Zinni tries to be funny and tries to make it look like Aladar is being funny. Nero says, that, children, is what is called a Jerkosaurus. And, so Aladar doesn't really like being called that. Not that I blame him. But, so they're all, they're all sad because they don't think that there's water there. And Ema kind of sad works her way into the middle of the lake area and near where the lake would have been. And she's like, there was always water here, always. It's one of the places where it collects and everything. And Crone sent Bruton and a scout to look around to see if there was any water anywhere else and just kind of scout out the area. Which, I mean, looking for water in another place where it may have collected is a good idea. I'll give that to Crone. Credit where credit is due. And what ends up happening is Baleen ends up stepping onto the this lake bed and kind of walking across, and Aladar and Zinni both hear weird types of cracking. And they move back over to Baleen where she is, because she's making large dents in the water, of course, or not in the water, but in the topsoil or the sand. And he gets over and he's like, "Don't move." And she's like, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "I think I hear something." And they dig and dig and dig and dig, and then he has Baleen press her foot down again because she's a giant freaking dinosaur that's bigger than all the other dinosaurs there, so her footprint is going to make a large dent in this stuff. And she pushes again, and they get water. And they get Ema drinking, and then they get water. Aladar shouting to the rest of the herd that there's water, there is water, it's here. We just have to kind of dig for it. And Crone and the others hear this. Well, Crone and Nira hear this, and Crone, being selfish that he is, starts running full tilt to see where the water is, and the others are coming. And he gets to Aladar where they're letting Ema drink, and he's just like, Aladar's like, "It was here. We just had to dig a little." And Crone's like, "Good. Now get out of my way." And he starts drinking and everything, and while the others are kind of panicking, running for the water, and Aladar. Nira's kind of watching this, and Aladar is a little, he's not very happy with the way that everybody's acting, because they're pushing and shoving, trying to get to the water, and Crone's kind of growling at others that are trying to get into the water as he's trying to drink, even though they're as thirsty as he is. And what ends up happening is, Nira kind of sees this, and she sees Aladar kind of pushing some of the others a little bit, not to get them away from the water or anything yes, let's everybody panic, let's everybody run and cause a scene right now, because that's the best thing to do right now, as opposed to staying calm and everybody getting water as opposed to only a few people getting water. It's not like it would be that hard to have Baleen press in a few other places and get some more water flowing. Not like it would be that hard of a thing to do. And Nira's kind of noticing the differences between Aladar and her brother. And then, that night, they all sleep. And the next morning, we have Suri, who is the, Pleo's daughter, Aladar's younger sister. She's trying to get the two little Aladars, the two little baby iguanodons, to come out of their little hiding spot so they can get water. And Aladar, kind of, helps coerce them out a little bit, and they get the two little iguanodons water, and he helps them, makes the two little, I'm assuming they're two brothers or so, we don't ever learn their genders, but he has them help get water, but, we're going to dig a bit, and then we're going to all press together to get water here at the same time. So that way the two of you can get water and we can work together, as opposed to, oh, I got mine, I'm done. And Nira kind of watches this, and she comes over and apologizes to Aladar for calling him a Jerkosaurus. And he's like, no, it's okay. I mean, he heard, he was right there when Zinni did his stupid thing, so he's like, yeah, no, I you're fine. And he helps her get water. And then there's a little bit of a scene where we have Bruton and the scout are kind of looking around, and they actually end up getting attacked by two Carnotaurs because earlier on we saw two Carnotaurs show up, and they've been following the tracks that this herd has been leaving, because a large herd, even in like a desert sandstorm, is still going to leave tracks. If the sandstorm didn't last long enough or wasn't strong enough to like cover up the tracks, and they're following the Carnotaurs are following the tracks. And what ends up happening is Bruton and the scout are attacked, and then Bruton gets his way back to Crone, and he tells him the Carnotaurs are on their way and everything. And and Bruton and Crone's like, well, you led them right to us, you idiot. Maybe you can be the one to slow them down, because Bruton's like hurt and everything. He's got like, he's like got open wounds and everything. So of course the Carnotaurs can smell the blood. And so he gets all the herd up and going and trying to get everyone moving faster and everything so they can leave. And Aladar tries to point out, well, like Ema and Baleen and such, they can't go as fast as the other ones can. And Bruton's like, fine, or again, Crone's like, fine, then they can slow down they can die and be slow down and be food for the Carnotaurs, so the Carnotaurs would take longer to try to get to us, and we can have time to get to the nesting grounds and get to a safe spot. They'll slow them down. Which, in actual terms of dinosaurs, since we don't exactly know the way that dinosaur herd mentality worked, we really don't know if that was the way that they would act, or if it was a little bit less survival of the fittest. But a lot of species, it is survival of the fittest. I mean, in other cases, there are like they'll take care of their wounded, like parents will protect their young. In certain cases, I think they've been shown that like with T-Rexes, that T-Rexes were actually fairly nurturing parents in regards to their young, and that T-Rex is actually kind of hunted in, I wouldn't say packs, but I would say pairs. And like if they had an old enough child that wasn't quite ready to leave on its own, but was still young enough to be part of the pack, part of the group, then they would have like hunting trios type thing. Which that's just the way that that's the way that it was. Some dinosaurs probably function the same way, others didn't. And if you were an old or a sick dinosaur, an injured one, unless you could prove yourself as still being valuable to herd, I wouldn't have been surprised if it was, oh, nope, you're going to stay here and be, food for this other creature. So that way we can get out of here faster and less likely of them chasing after us. And, so Aladar is trying to get Baleen and Ema going so they can try to, escape from where the Carnotaurs are coming. But, Pleo kind of has to point out that, they're still not moving very fast and everything. And, it starts to rain, which, which is at least, I think, somewhat helpful. I mean, it's going to, I don't exactly know how rain works when it comes to, like, washing away scents, but I would assume it would depend on how strong the rain is and how strong the scent is. But like the Carnotaurs still find the lake and they find the water, so that they know they're on the right track. And Aladar and the others, and Aladar and his group actually end up hiding in this cave. And Bruton ends up coming in with them. Well, he kind of, it's not 100% by choice, but it's like it's better to be in the cave where it's dry than out in the rain where the Carnotaurs can smell him better. And there's he goes in there, and we kind of get the scene where we have Ema is like, well, but he's why is he even here and everything. And Aladar's like, well, he was one of them, but now he looks an awful lot like one of us, in regards to he's injured, he can't move as quickly as he usually can. and Bruton, Crone threw him away just the same way as you know just the same way as he would have thrown away Ema or Baleen or Earl. And Cleo kind of doesn't take pity, but she has sympathy for Crone in regards, and Bruton in this, and she takes over a plant that is growing in this cave, and is apparently like the same kind that grew on their island. And I don't remember if she like rubs it on his wounds or if she just like leaves it there for him to eat, but like they talk a little bit, and he's like, well, why does he do this? Why does he care about the old ones and everything? And Cleo's just like, that kind of like that. That's just the way that Aladar is. That's just the way he is. And Aladar and earlier, Crone had kind of threatened Aladar, like, if you ever question my orders again, I will kill you, type of a thing. And that sounds like a very Scar thing to say. And what ends up happening is the Carnotaurs actually end up finding the cave that they're in via noise. The Carnotaurs find them, and Aladar and the others, have to try to escape. And first of all, the fact that Baleen can even fit in this freaking cave, and I don't remember if they still show her standing upright or not, but the fact that you can fit a Brachiosaur in this cave is already quite impressive for the size of this cave. But they get through, or they get into the cave, and they're working their way through the cave, but the Carnotaurs come and attack, and Aladar almost ends up getting, kind of dragged down by one of them, but then there's a cave-in that happens, and one of the Carnotaurs gets crushed, and, like, it covers up the cave, so Aladar and the others are on one side, and then the other Carnotaur survives, and it's on the other side, and it can make its way to the entrance, and Aladar and the others, they can't get over the cave in, so they're gonna, I think I don't remember if Bruton sacrificed himself or if he just died. I don't remember exactly, but like he doesn't survive out of this. He doesn't survive, unfortunately. And he ends up, Crone or Bruton dies. But, so Aladar and his group are now working their way through the cave, and they end up finding this, this other type of cave-in wall. And, I think it's Cleo and Zinni smell like sunlight on the other side, because, if, certain animals have heightened senses of smell than we do, and they smell the sunlight on the other side. And they start trying to, dig their way through these boulders and everything. And Aladar is even like the nesting grounds have to be on the other side of this. And even Ema kind of confirms this. And they're like, well, we have to get through this cave. If we get through this, then we can get out. And we can get into the nesting grounds and we'll be safe. And Aladar, he's kind of pushing. And Baleen is just like, she's like what are the fed up old lady that's like, screw it, I ain't dying here. Baleen's funny. Baleen and Ema are great. Ema is much more like the angry old lady that would be like the lady that's just like I don't remember what Disney movie was it which one was it? I do not remember which Disney movie it was, unfortunately, that I talked about this, where they had it was like an old lady character that's like sits on the porch and like with a rocking chair and a shotgun with like a ton of cats around her. What movie was that I talked about that in? Because I remember that. Do not remember what movie that was. I'm like running through my head. I'm like, what's the movie that was in? Because I talked about it. Do not remember, unfortunately. Why can't I remember? Like all these 1,000 cats, shotgun, old lady. I don't remember. I do not remember. What was that movie? It was a Disney movie, but I don't remember what it was. If you remember which movie I was talking about, please comment so I can be like, that was the movie. I remember now. Or if I remember, I might be like, oh, that's what it was. We'll see. I don't remember. But like Ema's that type of a person, and then Baleen is like the gentle, I don't want to hurt anybody type of a thing. Very well spoken, polite, everything. And what ends up happening is um, Mulan, or not Mulan. That's very wrong. But Baylene's just like, screw it, I ain't dying here. And she like gets up on her back legs and like pushes her front legs into this wall of rocks and just like pushes enough, and like the wall caves of like all these rocks and everything. The wall caves and they're able to get through. And on the other side is the nesting grounds. Beautiful, pristine, untouched by the damage from like the fireballs that came raining down. And so it's their group is there, and they get into the water and they're playing and they're happy. And Ema looks up and she looks over at like this other side and she's like, well, that's the way that we used to get in here. And it's like this treacherous rock fall that you're not going to be able to get over. And Aladar's like, they're not going to be able to get over that. And he basically just makes a decision. He's like, nope. And he just like turns and goes back into the cave and digs his way through the rock wall at the other end of the cave to get out. And he runs his way around and he gets to where Crone and the rest of the herd are. And like Crone is, they get over this rock wall and then they can get into the breeding grounds. And he's like, okay, yeah, no, we're gonna climb this rock wall in the morning. And he's even gonna try to make the two younger iguanodons do it. And Nira is just not happy about this. And what ends up happening is, Aladar shows up and he's like, there's a carnivore that's coming and you can't get over that wall. There's like a sheer drop on the other side. No one will survive. But, there's a better way this way. I know a better way to get into this place. And he ends up, him and Crone end up fighting for dominance. And Nira actually steps in and defends Aladar and like chooses his side. And, I wouldn't say betrays her brother, but it's like she picked the smarter choice because Crone's going to get them all killed if they try his way, just between his, brute stubbornness and not willing to admit that he's wrong. And Carnotaur does show up. And instead of everybody panicking, Aladar's like, no, just stay together as a group. And they all start like kind of, yelling, well, their war cry, I guess, for all intents and purposes, at the Carnotaur. And like it kind of, it backs up and they start to get past it because it's one thing if it's like they're running and it can attack them from behind. And, it's one thing if it's just like one of them. But if like it's this whole group that's just like refusing to back down, it kind of backs off and like the others are working their way around. But it sees Crone off by himself, and it tries to go after Crone. And Aladar just like, well, I can't let him die, and he just like goes and gets to where Crone is, and he. He's trying to get, he's trying to save Crone from the Carnotaur, and like Crone's trying to climb the wall to get to the other side. And the Carnotaur is just kind of chasing him. And, Aladar does end up defeating the Carnotaur, but Crone unfortunately ends up getting fatally injured in the process. And then what ends up happening is, Nira kind of does get, comes to say goodbye to Crone and everything after the Carnotaur plummets to its death. And they end up, she tries to come to say goodbye to Crone, but he's already dead. And then the herd, they accept Aladar as their leader, and they make their way into, they start making their way to the cave, and then through the cave, I'm assuming like as a team, they kind of like dug out the rest of the stuff and probably found the other dead Carnotaur, which probably was like promptly, okay, well, let's get this out of here. We don't need any other Carnotaurs coming in here, so let's get this dead corpse out of the way. It's been crushed, but let's get it out of the way. And then, like, they get into the breeding grounds, and, all of them head into the breeding grounds, and they're all happy, and they're all safe. And then we cut to, like, a couple of months or however much ahead. I don't know how long dinosaur breeding season lasts, but they cut a couple of months ahead. And, it's now the hatching season and everything, and we have Aladar and Nira are of course together, and they have their little nest, and they have their babies hatching, and like Pleo helps Cleo helps open one of the eggs for the first one, and what ends up happening is Ema made the joke of, I love bringing in babies, and Yar just like Yar and her had this great back and forth all the whole way through the movie, and I loved it. And Yara was just like, I bet it's been a while since you brought in any eggs, and she goes, yeah, you're right. How about I practice on your head? I love that. I love the back and forth that they have. It's so funny. And like, yeah, just like all the great lines that they got in this movie. They did a great job with the lines in this movie, I think. I do wonder whether it's like how much of this was just like the actors in the booth, getting the basic lines that they need and then like just kind of riffing, and how many of them were like them together and how many in it was the writers, which I'm sure a fair amount of it was the writers, but then it's also like, they let the actors do some ad-libbing and see like, okay, well that joke works better than this line, and this line works better than this line, so it's a mix of things. And a lot of directors and stuff work that way. Can't do quite that much riffing when it comes to like anime redubbing type stuff, but if you're if you're the original voice actor for it, then you can always make some other jokes and everything depending on what the source material is, and the circumstances. But so Cleo helps hatch the first egg, and Yar picks up the baby, and he's like, hey, you're looking cute, and then it pees the same way that Aladar did, and he's like, yep, you're your father's son, all right. And way back when they had first met Ema and Baleen, the lemurs had asked if there was anybody like them at the breeding grounds, and Ema's like, oh, the last couple of days I've seen all kinds. And like during the when all the eggs are hatching, Zinni was like, look everyone, we got new neighbors, and it's a bunch of female lemurs, and like they're just like, ooh yay, like trying to go after Zinni. And they're just like, yeah, so everybody's happy. They get a whole happy ending and everything. Yeah, the Iguanodon line will continue. The other lines of the other dinosaurs will continue for the time being. Admittedly, that there's, eventually going to be another asteroid / very bad weather conditions that result in a bunch of other dead dinosaurs. But for now, things are okay. And actually, the beginning and the ending of the movie are actually really good quotes that are read by Cleo's actress. And it's about, it's like kind of the whole concept of, how much difference can like one life make? And, how much can, one little life, how big of a difference can that make in the world? And it's, it's the encouraging thing of, kids go out there and, what can you do to, help the world become better? And there's lots of times of like kids that try to make the world better, and I love kids that do this. The kids that are like, well, I'm gonna just pick up all the trash in my neighborhood, or I'm going to, help. I'm gonna save up money so I can, buy shoes for kids that don't have shoes, or buy school supplies for kids that don't have school supplies at my school, or gather food so people aren't so hungry. I love kids that do that stuff. That gives me hope for the future. just so much hope for the future in those cases. And Aladar is kind of like, show kids, little lives can lead to a lot of big things. The fact that egg survived that nest led to now this whole group was able to make it to this nesting ground safely. And such, and that's the end of the movie. Then we have the cast. So we have D.B. Sweeney as Aladar. Iguanodon, giant, raised by lemurs. We have Alfre Woodard as Cleo, who is a very sassy matriarch of the lemur clan, which I love. And she's been in a few other kind of Disney-related things. She is Miriam Sharp in Captain America: Civil War. She is the woman that Tony interacts with after he does his presentation about the bio retro framing thing that he does at the beginning of the movie, where he has that presentation with the hologram. She's the woman that was like, yeah, no, my son was in Sokovia and he had so much promise, and then he died because of what you and your group did. And so she's kind of one of the people that makes that big impact. Very small role, but a very big impact. and she's also in Luke Cage. She plays Miriam Dillard. Sorry, Mariah Dillard. Sorry. And so she's one of the few actors that has been two different roles in the kind of the Marvel universe. In regards to, I don't know how much the Netflix series actually pertain to being able to be part of the Marvel universe, but we'll see. I think she's a judge in the series, but I haven't seen Nick Cage, so I'm not 100% sure on that. And then she was also Sarabi in the 2019 Lion King adaptation that they did for like the computer animated live action thing that they did. We have Ois Davis. Sorry, so O.C. Davis as Yar, who's of course the Aladar's grandfather type thing. We have Max Casella as Zinni. I don't remember if there was anything else that he did necessarily that I'm super familiar with, or that's Disney related. Then we have Hayden Panettiere as Suri, as Aladar's stepsister. She is of course Heroes, save the cheerleader, save the world. She's in that. She was in A Bug's Life, where she plays like the younger Princess Dot. She's in a couple of the Kingdom Hearts games where she does the voice of Kairi, and then Shion, who's like a weird alternate version of Kairi / Sora. Even when you're playing the game, it's like, okay, how did that happen? But like she's in that. She was also in Remember the Titans, as in the movie about football. It has nothing to do with like Titans from like mythology or Attack on Titan. But Remember the Titans, she plays like the daughter of one of the coaches in that. Then we have Samuel E. Wright as Crone, and then we have Juliana Margulies as Nira, who much later on would go on to be on The Good Wife on CBS. I think she's been in a few other things, but that's the main other thing that I recognize her from. We have Peter Stiragusa as Bruton. We have Joan Plowright as Baleen, so the giant Brachiosaurus. We have Della Reese as Ema. And Earl doesn't really have a voice actor. And then we have like there's the Velociraptors in it, and then there is the Carnotaurs, and like all of their sounds were just made by all of their sounds were just made by like I think a lot of the Carnotaur sounds were like a combination of like different leopards and big cat sounds. So not really too much else. A lot of the sounds in the movie were, of course, for like the animal sounds were made by, we'll mess with like the bass and the up and the down for like, I think one of the things was like a chihuahua. like the sound director's assistant's roommate's chihuahua was like some of the noises in it, and like they've gotten like different things like different bird noises, different like the big cats that they had, and different things like that they use to do the sounds for the animals. And in the bonus features, they talked about like how they had to build like in the computers, they had to build these different rigs to get the motion of the animals correct, get the make it seem like they actually hold weight. So there's you actually believe that there's a weight to this creature when when like Ema when Baleen steps onto the lake bed, and like all this other stuff, you have to have that weight there in the animation. So there was a lot of that. Lots of moving forward and everything. It's a lot of the technology that they used to like do that was do the animation for that is like some of the same technology that they used for like Toy Story several years earlier. Excuse me. And like you look at this, so much advancement. It's like with Toy Story, and I'll talk about this at one point because after I get the this is kind of the last Disney one for a little bit because I've got other stuff to work on. But then I'll go back to doing the rest of the Disney ones, which will finish, get through those and everything. But whatever point in time I do get back to the Disney ones, I do believe the next one is The Emperor's New Groove at whatever point in time that we'll get to. But like Toy Story, I will end up doing the Pixar movies at some point as well. But like Toy Story, like the original Toy Story, one of the rules was when they were telling the scriptwriters, okay, rule, you can't have any liquids in it. And everything else is fine, but no liquids. So no rain, no water, no milk, no juice, no nothing, no liquids. Because we can't quite do that. And, the script went like, okay. Then, the first movie, there's no liquids in that movie. But then, in the other movies, there's other ones where they deal with there is liquids in the movies, and then, several years later, you have, Finding Nemo, which is, most of the movie is set underwater. And, here in, Dinosaur, there's a fair amount of, water effects because we have, Aladar swimming at various points in time. We have the other times where they're getting, water at the lake. We have times where, when they get to the nesting grounds and, Baleen goes into the water and, causes like a little bit of a wave in the water. And yeah, some of that was combining it with like real life locations, but then you also still have to be able to make the movement of the water. And fun fact: when it came to the the giant dust cloud and smoke cloud and type stuff that they used for the fireball, when it came, the monster fireball thing that they used, they actually set off multiple different types of explosions around, and like filmed it, like turned stuff upside down so they could watch as it spread. They set off different types of explosions and everything, and just to record it and see how they can use that for using the effects, which I just think is kind of fun. And just everybody likes the day where we get to work with dynamite. Well, maybe not dynamite, but let's work with that. Let's work some explosions today. Those are kind of fun. Everybody got your earplugs? Yep. Everybody got your cameras rolling? Yep. All ready to film this explosion. And we do that, and they did all that type of stuff, and I love that they put that kind of effort into trying to make sure that it worked for what it needed. And I just find that great. I still cannot remember the lady that I said that was basically like a lady with like a ton of cats. Why can't I remember that? Damn it, why can't I remember? Disney brain. Damn it, I don't remember. If I remember, I will try to remember to put it on this. If I don't, I'll at least be like, I don't remember. If I think about it, I'll let you know. Okay, I remembered the cat lady. I'm sorry, but I remembered her. Okay, so the cat lady that I was trying to remember was like, lady with all these cats over there. Okay, so it was Hunchback of Notre Dame. It was the female gargoyle in Hunchback of Notre Dame. I'm like, why can't I remember it? Yes, Hunchback of Notre Dame female. Victor Hugo, and then the female gargoyle. It's like, why couldn't I remember that? I'm like, okay, now I remember. That's right, female gargoyle. That. Okay, we're good then. That's what I was trying to remember. Thank you. Bye. But yeah, that's what we get. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.
Some things start out big, and some things start out small. But sometimes the smallest thing can make the biggest changes of all.